Hello, and thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Bite-Sized Cybercrime, the podcast where we discuss cybercrimes and cybersecurity news. Today we will be talking about an insider threat scenario that seems straight out of a movie. I think to some extent, everyone gets weird revenge fantasies. Maybe about a boss you hated, someone who stabbed you in the back, anyone who has wronged you in some way. Most of us don't really act on these, and that's a good thing. Elaborate revenge fantasies are often impractical and really easy to go sour and come back to bite you. But that didn't stop a developer who had soured against their employer, which allegedly was the Eaton Corporation. A man living in Houston was working for a corporation based out of Ohio. Though it was not named in official court documentation, there is speculation that it was the Eaton Corporation. At some point during his tenure, he became paranoid that he was going to be fired, and despised being seen as a replaceable cog in a machine. So he had a plan. If he was going to be fired, he was going to take the company down with him. In 2018, the individual had his responsibilities reduced during a standard corporate realignment. It was this moment that he decided to enact his plan. After all, if his responsibilities were being reduced, there may be a chance he's going to be on a performance improvement plan, and those often don't go well. He took this change as a sign that his job was in trouble. So he began writing malware and embedding it throughout the company's production environment unnoticed. The malicious code would trigger after his Active Directory account was disabled. Active Directory is a directory service that acts as a centralized database for users, computers, and other types of accounts within a Windows domain. Your account exists in Active Directory at your job to indicate that you're an employee there. You're also likely part of some groups that indicate more specific job responsibilities that you may have. These groups can give you permission to access things like your department's shared folders. And, of course, prevent you from accessing things like a list of how much everyone at your company is getting paid, unless you're in HR. Then you can probably see that. One part of the malicious code written would lock the accounts of every single employee at the organization if his account were to be disabled as well. Though, the main part of this code was one that includes an infinite loop, which was overwhelming servers and causing them to crash, taking down production systems and halting operations at the organization. He had to return his company-provided laptop when he was let go from his job, and that contained a lot of deleted data that was able to be recovered with digital forensics. This data included some of his internet searches on privilege escalation attacks, and how to hide processes and files. He was not able to forensically wipe these searches from his computer, and this was crucial evidence in catching him. Though, I would say it's hardly a coincidence that when he was terminated in 2019, everything started crashing and everyone's accounts got locked out. It sure also doesn't help that he named his kill switch "Is DL enabled in AD?", which is his initials, DL, enabled in Active Directory? And if it was switched to no, that's when everything activated. I'm sure that was also some pretty strong evidence that he may have been responsible for this. He was initially arrested in 2021, which was 2 years after this whole situation had even happened. And just this week, he was finally sentenced to 4 years in prison for sabotaging his ex-employer with the kill switch. This kind of insider threat is quite rare for many reasons, one of which is that doing something like this is rather obvious and is going to get you arrested, and most people don't want to sabotage their job so bad that they get arrested and go to jail and can basically never find a job in that industry ever again because they did this. But also, most of the time, people just don't have the technical savvy to write custom malware and perform privilege escalation attacks. DL, of course, also had the advantage of working at the company for a while. He likely understood a lot about the environment that he was working in. He was a software developer, not exactly a system administrator, but he did still likely have an understanding of how the networking worked, how Active Directory was set up. Those are not too hard to figure out if you do a bit of snooping around. The most common type of insider threat that's actually seen in the wild are entirely accidental. Think about people just stumbling upon files that were improperly locked, for example. I've actually done this quite a few times, and it's not like I'm trying to harm my employer, it's just, oops, I meant to find something else and somehow ended up here, and I don't think I'm supposed to see this. Anytime this happens to me, I try to report it to the document owner so I can make sure it is properly secured, because misconfigurations are rather common, and many people may have absolutely no idea that their own data isn't being secured properly in their environment. There are also some cases where insider threats are compromised by a different attacker. I'm not talking about the North Korean IT worker scheme. I'm talking about someone who has worked for a company for a while and gets contacted by a group of hackers to do something like plant malware within the systems. They may be offered compensation by the hacking group to basically sabotage their own job, which I'm not sure why you'd ever do this, because yeah, you may be getting paid by this hacker group, but it's kind of a one-time deal and you need a job. It's pretty much a guaranteed way to go to jail and never be able to find a job in your field again. It would have to be absolutely life-changing money for people to even consider doing such a thing, but realistically, it's often not. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Bite-Sized Cybercrime, and another thanks to Bleeping Computer, The Hacker News, TechCrunch, and the New York Times for information on this case. And until next time, stay secure.